Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NCOIL One-on-One. With us here today is Rhode Island Senator Roger Picard, Vice Chair of the Rhode Island Senate Commerce Committee and NCOIL Executive Committee member. Senator Picard, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure. How are you today?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, so let's hop right in here. Can you tell us what first led you to run for elected office?
Oh my God, you're going back a while. It's like 31 years. I was actually between jobs, if you will. I had worked 19 years for McDonald's as a store manager, that type of thing. And I worked for a franchise who was selling off his stores, that type of thing. So it was an opportunity for me to try to do something different. So I changed my career path. I went back to school, get a master's in social work to hopefully work in a school department. While that occurred, the local rep from my district, and remember, Rhode Island, we're a small state, so the districts are small, wasn't running again. And my brother came to me and goes, well, Roger, you always wanted to do something, get involved with the community. Why don't you run for state rep? I was like, really? What's that entitle? And that's how it all gets started. We made a decision to run, my wife and I, and went from there.
That's awesome. So you said that you went back to school to get your master's in social work. I know that you also worked in your district for a school system. Was that experience working directly with members of your community have any impact with the issues you work on that you bring to the Capitol?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let me connect some dots for you. So when I worked at McDonald's, towards the end of my 19 years as store manager, we had double-digit unemployment, double-digit inflation at one point, and then there was a point, much like today, you couldn't get employees whatsoever. So I started working with the local school, their dropout prevention programs. I started working with some of the local senior centers to get the people to come in. So I got a taste of working with human service agencies, and I really like that. So with that being said, that's what prompted me to go to get my master's in social work and then hopefully get into the school department, which I lucked out and got into my hometown. So it was like a double whammy, if you will, there. Tying that into what I do with the legislature is important to me because it kind of gives me a vertical integration of what I do down there, if you will. There's one thing setting policy or voting on policy down at the State House, and that's at the 50,000-foot level. But I actually get to see and to experience how it trickles down, if you will, or how it affects people on a day-to-day basis. So it's a very cool place to be, being able to write or vote on policy, if you will, and at the same time implement it on the local level, and vice versa. Everything I learned from my community and from my constituents, whether they're working, whether they're part of the school department or just part of the community, I can bring it up to the legislature and have that influence how policy should go forward. So it's kind of, I like it very much.
That's great. It sounds like they go hand in hand together very well. So
yes, they do.
A good benefit for your community, that's for sure. So now, when you're at the Capitol, what issues are you most involved in? What issues have you been working on the most throughout your time in the legislature?
It's kind of all over the place. If I had to choose one or another, lots to do with schooling, obviously, because I work in a school district, and so that's always a major topic. But besides that, it's whatever my community feels that they need or people start talking to me about. And over the 30 years I've been down there, they varied, that type of thing. One of the bigger ones was trying to keep a local hospital open in my hometown, which actually services Northern Rhode Island, that type of thing. That was a big community involvement. We needed a lot of legislation to deal with that. So we worked on that a lot. So that was kind of one of the bigger ones. But besides that, it's whatever, not only the hot topics of that General Assembly's session, but what my constituents are really looking for, what they think they really need and to address. So it's kind of all over the place, if you will.
That's great. Yeah. So you mentioned, trying to keep that hospital open. Is access to hospitals kind of an issue in Rhode Island? Is it pretty good
Healthcare
as
is always
it is?
an issue, no matter where, right? So yes, in Rhode Island, we have a variety of hospitals that we had here, many, that type of thing. And at one point, this is pre-COVID and the whole thing, there was discussion that there were too many hospital beds in the state of Rhode Island. It was inefficient for the state of Rhode Island. However, Northern Rhode Island, where my hometown is and where this hospital is a very unique community, if you will. Rhode Island is an interesting mindset. If you live in Texas, you can drive 2.5 hours to go somewhere and not think twice. In Rhode Island, you can get across from one part of the state to the other in an hour. To drive 20 minutes, a lot of people like, oh, you got to pack a lunch, it's far away, that type of thing. That's serious. So, having a hospital local is huge. In my community, there are 8 senior high rises. We have a lot of elderly who live in Northern Rhode Island. And then for them to travel far is a hardship, that type of thing, as well as their family. And just having the availability, care for everybody in the community, a quick access is important. We keep some of the logistics, if you will. We keep all the local fire apparatus, the ambulances and emergency vehicles local. They can go to our local hospital. They're offline for maybe 30 minutes. They have to go down to Providence, which is only a half hour away, but it's a major trauma hospital. They're offline for 2-3 hours, that type of thing. So just from some practical points, it's nice, but from a humanistic perspective, having it up here and having that care available for everybody was extremely important.
That's great. So now you mentioned you currently serve in the Senate, but I know you also served in the House prior to that. Do you feel like serving in both houses, both chambers of the legislature, kind of makes you a more effective legislator throughout your career?
Well, it definitely gives you an understanding how the process works. When I first ran, I got to tell you, knowing how the process worked wasn't even top of mind. I wasn't really sure. It takes some time to get accustomed to that. But being in both the House and now in the Senate, watching how policy is determined, how the process works, yeah, it kind of gives me an advantage, if you will. You can bring a lot of institutional knowledge to bear, if you're willing, to the policies that's going up. Not that people will always listen to it, but it's there. So yeah, I think it does help tremendously in what I try to get accomplished, or we as a community try to get accomplished.
So it sounds like you're very busy working on issues in the legislature. You have your career in the school. Do you feel like your overall legislative service has made an impact on your family life?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. It opened up a whole different world. It really did. Not only for myself, my wife, but my 3 children. 2 of my children were 6 and 4 when I started, and my third one only knows me as being in the legislature all her life up to this point. But to understand, I had mentioned earlier about how things interact vertically, understanding how government works, understanding how to work with other people, understanding how to work with other people who disagree with you, was a good training for all of us, if you will. And it really expands the way you look at the world and the way you look at how you interact with other people and the way you look at yourselves, that type of thing. So yes, it had a major impact on our family, and that not just our immediate family, but our extended family, my brothers and sisters, my wife's brothers and sisters, my kids' cousins, grandparents, that type of thing, and even our very close friends, a small network of friends. Now, for them to understand how everything works too was extremely important.
That's great because I feel like a lot of people might focus on any negative aspects. It takes a lot of time, things like that. But seeing how it has positive impact, rippling through your entire family is a really great thing to hear.
Oh, thanks.
So moving on, how did you first hear about NCOIL and when did you get involved?
So NCOIL, when I was on the House side, I was on their it was called Corporations Committee, that type of thing, which dealt a lot with insurance issues. And one of the members of the Corporation Committee was Patrick Kennedy, who used to belong to NCOIL. So he would talk about it a little bit, but I was kind of just listening, if you will. When I went to the Senate side, I became chair of Corporations Committee, which is now Commerce Committee. And on my committee, there were 2 members who belonged to NCOIL, number one, and who they themselves were very knowledgeable of insurance, which was very important because when I became chair, insurance is not what I do, not at all. So I try to understand the conceptualness of insurance. So these 2 individuals, sadly both passed away, God rest their souls, said, why don't you come out here? You'll get a good feel of what's going on. So that was my exposure and how I got involved with attending the NCOIL program.
Great. I feel like it's great because I feel like you don't want only insurance agents or people who work in the insurance industry being members of NCOIL, but you want a bunch of different perspectives all around, so you can have more well-informed public policy. So it's
Mhm.
always good to have a different perspective there. And so, how would you describe your overall experience with NCOIL throughout your involvement?
It's been awesome. I really enjoyed going out there. I enjoyed all the meetings they had because they gave me a very, as I said before, a conceptual perception about how the insurance industry works. It gave me an understanding of a lot of the issues that they were dealing with, the trends within the industry, where things may be going, where things may not be going. That was very important from like an academic point of view. However, when you add in the ability to interact with fellow colleagues from various states, the staff at NCOIL and other people who come to the NCOIL meetings who are not legislators, they may be lobbyists, they may just be very informed individuals, that type of thing. You get to connect personally with them and understand from a more basic level, if you will, a community level, how the insurance is affecting all themselves, the people they represent, the people in the community. That vertical integration I keep talking about was very important to me to try to understand, at least conceptually understand it. So, and NCOIL provided that for me.
Insurance definitely finds a way to impact every area of life.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
it
for
matters.
sure. So, as the vice chair of your state's committee with jurisdiction over insurance, are there any issues that you want to see NCOIL take on as an organization this year going forward?
It's nothing specific that's popping in my mind right now. Um, no, I know NCOIL deals with healthcare, but not always the case. And besides that, the healthcare insurance doesn't really come in front of the commerce. But all the other issues that come into play, property casualty, all those type of things, they're forever developing, obviously. And now that we're post COVID and things done a lot more electronically, how that comes into play, how that works. So as long as they keep doing what they're doing, it's very important to me because I gotta tell you, when I look at people on my committee, there's nobody, zero, who have any insurance background whatsoever. They know what they want insurance to do, or what they think it should do, that type of thing. Whether it's capable of doing that, that's a whole different story. So by NCOIL sometimes floating forward papers about this is what's going on, or see model legislation, that type of thing, is very important. It's also very important to offset some of the other organizations that put forth insurance policy. We have our insurance department here in the state of Rhode Island, and they put forth what they would like to see happen, which is very good. But to have the ability of another organization or another couple of organizations who are looking at the same material and giving you different perspectives and different understandings, or if this happens, it could go in this direction. If that happens, it could go in that direction, that type of thing is extremely important, especially for people who don't understand it. Like I said, we have, when I used to be chair, I would have what I call DBR day or insurance day. And you could see my colleagues after about 30 minutes of testimony, they're phasing out, right? Because it's like, it's hard, it's like being in high school and somebody's teaching you chemistry or calculus, all of a sudden things are just flying over your head and you're going like, I'm not understanding this, that type of thing. So it's very important to have people who are knowledgeable in front of you, who can read the the committee, and explain to people on a very the level that we can understand what's going on. So it's nice to have those type of availabilities, if you will, of people who are very into and very knowledgeable about insurance.
Great. So you mentioned healthcare. I'm curious, is health insurance regulation in a different committee from Commerce? I think you were
It
mentioning.
is.
How is that dealt with in Rhode Island? I know it's different in every state.
It goes into our health and welfare committee, if you will. They look at that very, very closely. The insurers who insure healthcare, that type of thing, the federal regulations, it gets extremely complicated, really complicated. When you start talking about funding sources, availability, that type of thing. So that committee really deals with it almost on a weekly basis, that type of thing. And I have a lot of knowledge and I have a lot of policy people who are there to support that. So yeah, they separated it out from the two.
So you also mentioned it's good being at NCOIL and having interactions with people from the industry and be lobbyists. Do you see any benefits for them, consumer representatives, industry people, for attending meetings and being involved with the organization?
I do. I do. It's kind of like you said earlier regarding bringing in different perspectives and stuff. When we're knowledgeable about a certain subject matter, sometimes you can fall into that silo mentality. You see everything through that perspective, right? Which is important because you get all the nuances of of the industry itself. In this case, insurance. But when you have people like myself who are on the outside, you're going like, well, I understand what you're saying, but what about this, and this? Now, have you considered this? How do you take care of that? That type of thing. And then that interaction is extremely important. And I'm not just talking about the politics of it all, and that comes into play, and I understand that. But just the common application of insurance, how it affects people, how the insurance industry wishes it to affect people, but the reverse, how it really affects people, what the people really want from their insurance. And within that happy pull between the two, maybe some very good policy can move forward and some very good products could come out of it.
Awesome. So speaking of the politics of all, have you seen partisanship having an impact on insurance issues in Rhode Island as you see generally across the board in other legislatures? Or is
It
that
does,
more of a
it
case
doesn't
by
come
case?
into play. The answer is yes. Is it the overall driving force for our how we do? No, not really. It's way too important to let politics to get in the way, at least from what I see. Behind the scenes, maybe more than I know of. But yeah, it's a piece of it, but I don't, like I said, it's not the overall driving force.
That's good to hear. Good to hear that's how it's going in Rhode Island. So naturally, we've discussed some of the positive things, but unquote, of course, always things we can improve on. Are there any things you'd like to see the organization improve on going forward?
No, I think they do a really good job. They have 3 or 4 meetings a year. Sadly, like in Rhode Island, I try to make one a year. I can't do all 4. We're a part-time legislature. I mean, super part-time. I have a full-time job during the daytime, and we go in the evening. Where I know some of the other
Wow.
states, they go in January and they go to, say May 1st, that type thing, and they're there full-time. We're not like that. So the ability to access going to conferences is limited, if you will. Not just the time frame, forget the cost structure. So I know NCOIL takes that into consideration, and they always send a lot of information if we want it available to us, which is really, really nice. And that's one of the pieces I like that they do. Is there anything else that I would think that they could do better? No. Again, from my perspective, they're a very important asset to me to try to understand what I'm dealing with sometimes. And people are always available to talk, which is really, really nice.
That's great to hear. All right, so before we let you go, we have a couple lightning round questions we're going to ask you to help everybody get to know you a little bit better. So
Okay.
it'll be quick. Can you tell us your favorite all-time movie?
Movie.
Yeah.
Oh man. I have so many favorite movies in so many genres. So a lot of sci-fi movies I really like, especially when I was a kid. So now you can do the Star Wars, the Star Trek movies, that type of thing. But that genre of sci-fi and supernatural is some of the ones I enjoy the most.
Nice. All right, favorite all-time food?
I'm going to go very ethnic here. A meat pie, which is something very particular to the French Canadian people of descent, that type of thing that my mom made when we were growing up, and it's just something wonderful that everybody should try.
I'll have to give that a try next. Favorite book or author?
Oh well, at the sound of sounding a little faithful. The Bible is my favorite book. I read it often. Faith is a big part of our family, big part of the community that we hang in. So that's the one I read the most. But again, talking in genres, I like reading philosophy, psychology, theology, anything that falls into those categories.
Great answer. All right. Favorite song or musical artist?
Beatles,
Right.
most favorite group. Though I really enjoy, again, all the different genres of music, that type thing. But yeah, if I had to pick one, that would be them.
Favorite all-time TV show?
MASH.
Nice. And last one, three dinner party guests, living or dead.
Wow. Is it just me at this dinner party or other people? Because the people I would invite, the other people probably wouldn't want to listen to, you know? Well, like I
Just
said,
you.
philosophy, theology, that type of thing, you know, like I would love to have Gandhi there to talk to Gandhi, Muhammad, Jesus, those type of people, it would be very important to me. And psychology, Piaget, you know, those type of individuals. But if I had a bunch of buddies over, then there'd be a lot of sports people type thing. You know? Just trying to be nice to everybody.
There
So,
you go. Always thinking about others, right?
well, we try. We try.
Yeah. All right. Well, this wraps up this month's NCOIL one-on-one interview with Rhode Island Senator Roger Picard. Senator Picard, thank you so much for taking the time.
Anytime. You have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.